Good morning, Bin Bin.
Okay.
Sharing my screen.
Hi, folks.
Hello, everyone. I'm just moving my screen around. I should have started sharing screen. Can everyone see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. Checking where my mouth is. Okay, it's reversed. That's okay. I'm working from a focus room today, so I'm like checking between the screens for people in the lobby. Cool. We have a few PRs to go through today, so let's get started. Just to get a quick status of everything as usual. First PR is PR 940. I think the last status that I saw was E had a feedback around the artifact type. I'm trying to see if Jun Chen have responded to that. So it looks like he's added 3 commits 17 hours ago and have re-requested for a review. E, would you be able to take a look today?
Yeah, I will do that today.
Thank you. So Jun Chen's back from vacation, is that right?
I think so. Maybe Shui can comment.
Yes, he's back.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll reach out to him later about if he should join the community meeting. Yeah, I'll reach him offline. The next PR is optional image mutation in Helm chart 944. Yep, as discussed last week, we suggested some logging changes. So it looks like we're still waiting for Mania's update on this. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're still waiting on him to follow up on it. I pointed him to kind of a sample way to add the warning command that we discussed last time. So just waiting for him to add that to the PR.
Cool. Akash, with this comment, like a PR is assigned, how do you do that? How do you trigger this comment? Just curious.
You can go on, so if you scroll up on the PR all the way
Yep.
to the top, and
all the way up.
yeah, and if you scroll, okay, on the right side below the reviewers,
On the right side.
under
Yep.
assignees.
So is it just this list of names?
It's under assignees, which is the section right underneath reviewers.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, there you go.
So is this like an indicator of saying like what action item we're waiting on?
Yeah, like who's the kind of, yeah. I mainly do it because from the PR list, you can easily tell like, okay, who's
the author, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is used as like whose action are we waiting for?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Next PR 948.
Yep. So thanks, Binbin, Susan, for the comments on this. I've addressed all of your comments, Susan. So if you could take another look whenever you have a chance. Binbin brought up a good point about whether we should be enabling HA mode for our dependencies as well. So we already do that for Redis, but should Dapper also be running in HA mode? So I was looking into that. Unfortunately, the way Dapper's Helm chart is set up, it installs a lot of extra services that are feature specific, which Ratify is not taking advantage of right now. So I'm trying to see if we can kind of not install those extra resources so that it becomes a problem in HA mode, where if you have 2 extra services with 2 different deployments, that means 6 more pods, which are kind of a waste at this point. So I'm trying to see if we can trim it down and streamline it a bit.
Thank you.
Just a clarification. So in our sample walkthrough for enabling HA, the user would have to install these extra dependencies today.
Yes. So the walkthrough has both the manual steps as well as the Helm file steps, similar to how the quick start will work. If you use the manual steps, then yes, you need to copy paste the Helm install command that we provide with the correct value flags specified. So for the work that I'm looking into, we would need to specify certain extra flags to reduce the replica count to 0 for some of the extra unnecessary deployments for features in Dapper that we aren't using. So that's the change that's required for this PR. We need to update the Dapper installation steps that we have.
Yeah. And do you know if we have a tracking issue for that already?
Actually, I don't think we do have a specific Helm file tracking issue for this. I can create one. I know we have one to kind of streamline or look into the upgrade downgrade process, but that one's a little bit more general. This is specific to fixing or adding Helm file support. So.
Yeah, let's create an issue just to track that.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be able to give it another round today.
Cool. Thank you.
Next PR 949. Is this ready for review, Akash?
Yes. Yeah. So it's finally ready for review. Made a few changes, added some extra unit tests to make sure we have the coverage that needs to be met. So if anyone has a chance over the next week to look at it, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the existing in progress PRs first, and then we'll move on to the new ones.
Sounds good. Yep.
Uh, 956, it looks like Binbin, this one is still in draft mode.
Yes, actually, yes, and actually it should be ready for review. I need to update the description, and also I'm thinking to add some documentation once we are done reviewing this PR, because we have a lot of errors defined, and if there's any change, I need to update the documentation as well.
Yeah. Does the PR currently provide examples of the like previously we talked about, like we want a defined list of like error codes and descriptions? Is that already in there?
Export source errors. So there is no specific documentation, but I export source errors. So there will be, if I merge this PR, we can check it on the Go doc.
Oh, I see. Okay, so there's no manual written error code list yet.
Right.
But they will be able to will be able to generate some.
Yeah,
is that what the doc is?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Thanks. So next one, 956. That one is I opened it yesterday. Updating AKV certificate provider to use get secret. It's mostly ready. I've put down the high level changes in the description. I'm still pending on adding some unit test and doing like more manual testing. But for the integration test, I was able to, I was able to update the existing certificate chain. A test scenario where like we were previously setting the root certificate as inline. So what I've done is I've configured the same certificate as the AKV certificate. So at verification time, it's already preloaded. So I've just ended up removing the inline root certificate. Does that sound good? So I was able to reuse an existing integration test that we have.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. So I'll add the unit test, and Bin later I'll tag you once it's ready.
Sure.
Next PR 961.
Yes, this one is recommended by Xinhe. He found that we grant like many like list watch update create access to secrets in the cluster level, but actually we only need this source access under the under the gatekeeper system namespace. So we just restrict the access permission.
I see. So like all the existing, like let's say if the customer is using Kubernetes secret as a form of credential to authenticate with the registry, that secret must be in the Ratify namespace.
Yes. And currently Ratify can access secrets like in the cluster.
Yep.
And and Ratify can both like read and write. But actually we only need to get access in the cluster level. For other access, we only need it like namespace.
So Bin, to clarify, the cluster role for the get or the read secret is used by the auth provider, and then the scoped down role for specifically for the TLS cert watching capability, that's a separate role, right?
Right. So yes.
Cool. And Akash, for the auth provider secret, just to confirm, like in our documentation, do we say like the secret must exist in this namespace? Is that what we say in the doc?
No, so it can support any namespace. You can specify the namespace, and we outline in the doc that it's up to the user to provide the correct RBAC to make sure you can read the secret from a different namespace. Right now, the way we've set it up is that because we've added this general cluster role, by default, the Helm chart installation will provide you the correct RBAC to read the secret from any namespace. So that's how it is set up right now. If that's kind of like a too much power security wise, we can maybe revisit that. But I think that's what Bin's been saying. He's split up that action so that it's only read for the cluster wide scope and it's read and write specifically for the gatekeeper's namespace. So.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks. I think there's one more PR on the list to go through. Yep, 962. I think it's fixing some of our CRD files.
Yes, I just forgot to delete a comment from a CRD definition. So it will generate a deprecation warning. So I just removed that.
Yeah, sounds good. I think Akasha already approved that one.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, cool. But yes, we do have a blocking issue on the SBOM tool. So we are blocked on merging any PRs right now. I think I just checked the status of the external issue. I think it's this one, SBOM tool issue 296. It's still open. I think they're doing code review, Bin. So yeah, so I've added this as a discussion on the agenda. Like, shall we just wait for their new release, or should we pin it to a older version and then in a day or two switch it to the latest again? What does everyone think?
I feel we can wait for a few hours, and if it's not resolved, we can like pin to a previous version as we did last time. Yeah. None of our like PRs like are urgently needing to go in, so I think we're good to wait for a day. Cool. Next on the agenda, I was just going through the new issues list. So I was wondering, Akash, do you want to add some context? Like how did people notice that we're not validating the init containers?
Yeah, this is actually thanks to, I think his name is Manish. He mentioned last time that when he was running Ratify with Gatekeeper, we weren't mutating the init containers field. And after a closer look, that's definitely the case. So on the mutation side, we would need to update the assign CRD from Gatekeeper, which is used to pinpoint exactly where in the template to use as input to Ratify. So we need to also add an extra set of those CRDs for the init containers field. And then on the verification side, we need to update, either create a new library constraint template, or we edit the existing one to also call the external data provider on the init containers field inputs as well. So that's the mitigation there. There's no code changes required on Ratify side. We need to update both our chart as well as our library of templates that we provide.
Yep. Do you have a suggested milestone for this?
So I tagged Manish to give his opinion on how important it is for him, but he would be the first person to raise it as a concern. And I personally haven't heard anyone else bring this up. So maybe we could do this post V1.
If we're not validating the container for the pre-task, is that a security risk?
I mean, it is. It's definitely not complete, but it's also how many people are using the init containers that I'm not sure if that's like a really important use case. So if someone else has opinions on this, if it is important, we can prioritize it.
Yeah. Asking our PMs, E and Feynman, if you're on the call. What do you think the priority of this?
Yeah, Akash, you just mentioned that this is mainly in the configuration or the policy template work, right? And in thing we need to do to update the code?
Correct. We should probably add another test for this too. But yeah, apart from that, it's just updating the Helm chart and the library folder that we have.
How much work we need? I do think this could be a potential security risk because an initial container, as I know, is the first container, right? Initialized. And I think some initial container may not pull images, but some I think. So if we don't mutate it or even verify it, there will be potentially security risk for it.
Yeah, that's it's definitely a possibility. In terms of work, it shouldn't be too much. It's just we would need to, I guess, add it to the RC7 milestone then.
Yeah, for me, I think I would suggest that we can include it in the stable release.
Okay.
Yeah, because once we have the stable release and it's the first version, right? And we publish announcement if many users use it. So I think there could be some attackers find this that initial container is not mutated or verified. So maybe they can inject something there. And this is the first container to be initialized, right? So if there is something wrong in this container, so everything we done follow up on the other containers, it's not worth. Yeah, that's my point. So I think if we don't need much more effort on this, I strongly suggest that we can include it in the next RC release.
Okay, cool. I'll label it for RC7 then, and if needed, we depending on resources, we can move it out if needed.
The init container do? Just curious for Ratify. What is it? Is it like load in some configuration or?
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I was just curious what the init container does for Ratify. Like what tasks does it handle when it spins up? I assume it's an init container when Ratify is deployed with the Helm chart, and then it takes care of some. Typically, it's like the bootstrap some config values or provision data or something. I was just curious what it does.
Yeah, so actually the init container here, like the Ratify deployment as a whole doesn't use init containers. This is for enforcing verification.
Customers deployment.
Customers deployment. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know how many people are using init container, but if they do, they would probably like this this image to be validated too.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that it probably want to look at it this before, like as a bug fix for this release. I was thinking maybe is this one that potentially Yuncheng can help us with, Shiwei? Is Yuncheng having some cycles?
Juncheng's not on the call, so maybe Shiwei, we will be able to sync later.
Right. Let's just let's keep it in the backlog for RC7 and we can discuss resources later.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see, I believe that's everything on our agenda. I just thought of one thing for the PR for Get Secret. Could you point me to any existing documentation about how to import a AKV certificate with a certificate policy? Like I was trying to update our documentation, like the reference documentation, but I find explaining everything might take like a 2 or 3 paragraphs, and also like how to instruct the customer to make sure they labeled the right content type and make sure they update the subject. I wonder if we have any existing documentation that I can just refer to.
Susan, you mean the permissions that
yeah, let me bring out what I have right now. I don't feel like I've explained very clearly why you must disable non-exportable keys. So if you have bandwidth, can you give this blurb a review as well, just to make sure our documentation is clear? Like, why do we require the get secret permission versus the get certificate, and how do user configure the policy at the time of certificate import or creation? Yeah, if you could give this a review, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I can do that. Can you send the link? Is the number?
Sure.
We also have some document currently. The doc writer is writing for notation using AKB. There are also permissions explained why we need permission for different actions. Yeah, I can refer you to that later, but I will also review this PR.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just saw a comment from Sajay. His comment is, avoiding this bypass might be necessary. Sajay, are you still on the call? Was this about the discussion with the init containers?
Yes.
Or?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this was regarding the init containers. I think it's a lot of people use it, and if this bypass mechanism is there, then it would look like we knew the problem and yet we enabled this. But if it's not a major bug fix, then we should definitely do it.
Yep. Yeah, it's scheduled for RC7 right now. So we'll figure out the prioritization offline.
Thanks.
So from the cert creation perspective, I just shared a link. I use Terraform to create it. So there's the shell of the properties that you would need to create it with the export off and digital signing being the only thing. So I might be able to help explain that a little bit because I've run into that several times.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Josh. Feel free to comment on the PR.
Will do.
Cool. Anything else people want to discuss?
I wanted to quickly discuss the Azure Container Registry SDK issue, if you could bring that up, Susan.
Yep.
So mainly just to get awareness on it and understand maybe where this should be prioritized. So for context, basically for our Azure Auth providers, for our Azure Workload Identity provider, as well as our other Azure Identity provider, we rely upon a 2019 preview Go SDK for the container registry auth exchange portion. So we exchange an AAD token for a registry refresh token. And we use a authentication client from this SDK to do that. This is a preview SDK, which was deprecated. And now the 2023 SDK has kind of been reworked quite substantially to the point where this authentication client for this refresh operation is no longer exposed and exported. So we need to kind of come up with a plan on how we want to migrate off of this SDK, when that should happen, if this is a blocker for anything, and then how we would actually do this as well.
Yeah. So Akash, do you think this would be a medium-sized work item?
Yeah, because so the tricky part is that the SDK itself no longer exports this client. So we would need to build kind of our own version of this. And I spoke to someone on the Microsoft, on the MCR team, who's also facing issues like this. So we could probably collaborate to make maybe a centralized repository, which in the meantime could act as the the way to get the refresh token, but that would require we have to build that out, and then Ratify would have to adopt it, and we'd have to find a home for that. So there's still discussions that need to be had, but just want to bring this up for awareness.
Thanks. The CSI driver also interacts with the same token, right? Like, I'm just wondering, we could reach out to the CSI driver AKB forks and see how they're doing this upgrade. I wonder which version SDK do they reference?
So I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the CSI driver one would use I think they would use the Azure Key Vaults Go SDK. That would be Key Vault specific.
Oh,
This is the container registry specific SDK. So,
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Did we start building Ratify like, and only the 2019 preview Go SDK was available? Yeah,
I guess the question is, why did we not pick like 2021 or something?
I guess that the auth path hasn't changed until very recently, so we probably will still need to do this. Yeah, we should have a longer discussion on this one. Would we break customers if we did this after V1?
I don't expect that would be the case, because this would just be
the way we get the refresh token, right? It will be very transparent to them. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely do it. I feel we just need to define the work and kind of see the timing for this. Potentially after we ship V1.
But if we're ready, so V1 shouldn't depend on a preview SDK. I think that's the point Akash is making. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the guidance here is. Is that allowed? Is that okay?
Any guidelines here? My assumption is like GA components should consume production ready grade software.
I see.
Do you have any connections to the Go SDK team and DevDiv?
Akash, do you know?
Yeah,
do you know people from DevDiv?
Yeah, I think Sajay got us into contact with them. So
okay,
we're gonna reach out to them. The thing is, it doesn't seem like a really small change, and I don't know the development cycle for it to be released on their end too. We're probably looking at a minimum of like a few months. That would be my guess. I'm not sure how it works on their end, but given that, how would we plan accordingly? So.
Yeah. I think it sounds good to start our investigation as soon as possible.
Yeah, my thoughts is that we can start the investigation to understand if, for example, for the stable release, we use this preview, and later they did some changes or something break. We want to switch to a new SDK. Will this break the experience for the Ratify users? If not, I think we are fine to go with preview SDK, and we will figure out the work how we can migrate to the latest one. Then we can do it later. I think the point is whether they are breaking changes. We needed to understand during our investigation.
Yep, sounds good. Anything else before we wrap up? Okay then, thanks for joining everybody.
Thank you.
I'll update the notes and the recording. I've been behind on my recordings, but I'll do it. I'll do it today. I promise.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Take care,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Thank you. Bye.